Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to the first International Women's Day event from the Women's Banner Group. I've already messed it up by not muting that over there. My name's Samantha. I'm going to be chairing our Women in Politics panel. We're really lucky to have a really mixed group of women who have been involved in politics for a very long time, women who are reasonably new to politics, an MP and a candidate for Tees Valley Mayor, as well as 3 Durham County Council candidates. So a really good mix, and I hope that we can just share our common themes of understanding politics from a woman's perspective. What brought us into politics? What can we do to get other women involved in politics? And what advice would we give to people who are either starting out or who are established women in politics? What do we want to see from women, the women that we're looking up to in politics? That's kind of what we're going to finish on. So if we start with people introducing themselves and telling us what brought you into politics, why are you where you are. I'll start with Chloe. Hello, Chloe.
Hi, the pressure of going first. I'm Chloe. I joined the party a few years ago when I lived in London and I was at university. Because my mum's a nurse and my entire life I've seen how hard she worked and how little her pay went up. And then the older I got, the more concerned I got about other social issues. So it got to the point where I was living a stone's throw from Westminster, and I went to an event with a non-partisan group trying to encourage women to stand, and I didn't turn to ash when I walked across into Westminster, and that was a really thrilling thing for me. And I was like, I love this and I want to get into it. And then when I came back up to Bishop Auckland, I got involved with the lovely CLP there, and now I'm a Durham County Council prospective candidate for Banner Castle East.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Heidi.
Hello, my name's Heidi Smith. I am a trustee of the Sensory Place. I'm Women's Officer for Sedgefield CLP, and I'm standing as a prospective County Councillor for Sedgefield. I would say the reason that I got involved in politics was because my little boy Isaac, well, I say little, he's 10 now, he has autism and a severe learning disability, so life can be quite difficult for him. And the more that I try to get involved, kind of take him out, do everyday things with him, it was just so challenging. So there was myself and a group of parents that founded the Sensory Place, and we provide educational courses and things like Makaton, day trips out, events. Obviously that support has need to be increased over COVID, but the reason that I got involved in politics is because I was seeing all of these families who were in awful situations where they couldn't get the support that they needed. And it could be a variety of reasons. It could be that they're a single parent with multiple children with disabilities. It could be that they're key workers and they're also trying their best to maintain their career that they've worked so hard for, as well as be a full-time carer to their children. An absolute multitude of issues, from being able to find them placements in school, as you know yourself, Samantha, from being able to get the correct support for them. Obviously, some of these families, I do genuinely believe that with the likes of autism, it does run in families. So it could be that the parent is autistic but never got a diagnosis, and they're struggling to kind of make sense of all of this, and struggling to do the everyday things that other people find easy. So I guess I really got involved in politics because I wanted to support these families. I wanted there to be more available for them. And I wanted them to know that they were being listened to. So I really hope that I do, get a chance in Sedgefield to be able to fight for these families and to be able to continue to do what I'm doing now, but on a wider scale.
Thank you, Heidi. Chris, if we go to you next.
Thank you. My name's Chris Varty. I'm a bit more mature than the other lovely ladies we have here, and I'm standing in Trimdon and Thornley division of Sedgefield CLP, where I am currently Vice Chair. I retired just not very long ago, but I worked, as my last job was in Stewart for quite a number of years. Before that, would you believe, I worked throughout secondary schools as a behaviour support worker in crisis response. So I went from those high down to those high. But the families are still the same, needing help, support, with the same kind of problems, whatever size the child is, they need help. Heidi knows that when I was 18, my father said, right, it's voting day, you need to go and vote for Labour, you've been brought up proper, that's who you go and support. But actually, it was actually 3 years before that when I knew who I needed to vote for. And the person, the woman who was really influential with me was my nana. She brought up 14 children that survived. There was 2 that didn't. And she lost her husband just a year before I was born. I was 15 when she died. And she brought these children up, and my aunts and uncles are brilliant. And don't ever have a wedding in our family, because I have so many cousins you would not believe. But she brought these up, and my granddad, the stories I hear about him are fantastic. He was deaf, totally deaf, but he was an air raid warden. And people stayed down there for hours before they got out because he didn't hear the all clear go. I get lovely stories. But this woman brought the families up. She had very little money. She brought us up, grandchildren. We would all go. But she was like families now. Hardly any food. What we are talking about food banks now, she used to tell us, always support the Salvation Army, because they're the only thing that kept us going. And I miss her incredibly. And I don't know what she'd have made of the situation now, because she always said, when Labour were in power, we kept going. When the Tories were there, we screamed because we knew we were never going to get anything to eat, and we had to go and see the Sally Bash. That's the lady I love. And the reason I'm here is because of those people. And that's why I support Labour. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go for Jessie next. Find your button. There you are.
Start with to say really nice to join you. I remember being at the first meeting of the Women's Banner Group a good few years ago now, and just tremendous work that you've all been doing to empower women. And make sure that
You might have to move a little bit closer to your laptop.
Right, hang on. Okay, 2 seconds. I do have. Do you want to go to Mary and I'll?
Yeah, we'll go to Mary while you sort out your volume.
Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, I guess for me, like similarly to a few others here, it's been quite a journey, an organic sort of falling into politics, if you like. And I guess through starting with my own childhood life experience. Similarly, my family were Irish immigrants, Catholic family, and we quite poor, but we didn't actually feel poor, but poor, went to church, those things, and I guess actually my faith did have a lot to do with in later years me becoming active in politics, because just from learning like that striving for social justice and internationalism that you taught in church, if you like, it was then, well, how do I put this into practice? And that would be getting involved in your community, joining a trade union, taking community action. So I've done all of those things, happened throughout my life. And then similarly to Heidi, my first daughter was born, and she suffered brain damage at her birth, and subsequently lived a life with severe cerebral palsy. And whilst she was an absolute angel and has made me probably the woman who's inspired me more to go into politics would be Maria, just because of the adversity of her life and how she overcome it and had an impact on everybody's life. But at the time she was born, it was when Margaret Thatcher was in power, and she had really run down the National Health Service. And when Maria was born 10 weeks early, there wasn't a ventilator for her to be born, so I had to wait for 3 hours before we could have the cesarean, because there wasn't such a basic piece of equipment as a ventilator. So waited 3 hours, went round the whole of the northeast looking for one, and I got a police escort down to North Tees, and then, well, she was born. We were just happy that she was alive when she was born, and we didn't realise there was anything wrong, any problems, until she was nearly a year old. But that had been directly linked to the trauma of her birth and not having that piece of equipment. So it made me really angry about politics and what Margaret Thatcher had done to the NHS. I mean, I must say, after that, since she's been born, throughout Maria's life, the NHS staff have been fantastic with her. But it shows what happens when it does get run down a bit. So I had Maria, and I had 2 other children within 3 years. Oh my God, I just don't know how I coped, but I've sort of erased that all from my memory a bit. So I was, I guess, just being a mum and a carer, community development worker at that time as well, and then went on to be a counsellor, and that came through my community development work. I guess it wasn't something I wanted to do. I just fell into it, I think. Just somebody asked me, and I went, oh, go on then, I'll have a try and, see how I fare as a counsellor. And I was on the council for 16 years, in the Labour Party 32 years. And just, yeah, so it's been, and then, sorry, I forgot, I'm a member of Parliament now. I didn't introduce myself there. Yes, and now, since 2019, I've become the Member of Parliament for the City of Durham. So, it was one of those, it was another sort of step in my life where I thought, why not just go for it? I knew that I was good at representing people when I was a councillor, but I wanted to do a bit more and help to change policy nationally. And fight for women, and we're very underrepresented. When I first become a councillor, and in fact I stood for cabinet just a year after I was on the council, didn't expect to get it, but there was only 2 women out of 10 men on the council, and I just thought, I'm putting my name down for this, just to make a point, really make a stand that women can do it, and then nearly died when I got elected onto the cabinet, but then you just know you're as good as anybody else. You are. I know we all sometimes feel that we're not as good as the men, because they've always been the ones there at the top in those positions of power. Yeah, we need, so we do. I know I'm jumping on to the next question, so I'll leave it, but just in terms of other women who are young women who want to get involved, you're as good as anybody else, and we need your voices there in public life. So.
Fantastic, Mary. Thanks very much. Mary, for those of you who don't know, maybe listeners, watchers, Mary's office is inside Durham Miners Hall. I am so jealous. It's such a beautiful building. I'd love to be able to go there every day and it be my job.
Oh, it is. It's beautiful. When I first went through there, because that's where Roberta had her office, and I thought, there's no way I'm changing from there, because it's just such an honour to go in. Not that I'm going there every day, but I know that the staff love just going in and seeing all the banners and the huge magnificent building that was built there for the miners at the time. So it is. It's where else could I be in Durham City, really? Yeah, it's beautiful.
And Jessie, are you with us?
How's that? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's fine. Just remember to sort of project a little bit.
Project a little bit. Okay. I'll speak into the microphone.
That's fine. Yeah. So
it was I used to run a charity called A Way Out, and it worked with some of the most marginalised people in the Tees Valley. I worked with people who were homeless. I worked with girls who had tried to commit suicide. And there was so many challenging situations that we were dealing with day in, day out. I was never political. I didn't think I was political. And actually, for the first few years of running the charity, I rarely spoke in public meetings. I just did my stuff. We ran the work. We helped people, and that was it. And I started to go to meetings with councillors or with decision makers or council officers, and I often felt like, why are they making these decisions? They've got no idea. But I wasn't confident enough to use my voice, and I thought, well, they obviously know better than I do. I've only been running this charity a few years. I was young. I started the charity at 24, so it was probably about 26, 27 where I started to go to these meetings, and everyone knew jargon, and I didn't know the lingo, and I remember every time I go, I used to get angrier and angrier. And I started to meet kind of people in like higher powered positions. And again, I would be so frustrated. I remember one meeting I went to, and we were talking about investment into women's services. And someone was saying, you know, like there was money that was going to be spent on something ridiculous, and we weren't going to get anything. And I remember just saying, this is ridiculous. This is what I'm dealing with day in, day out. And I brought a few home truths, and I've never stopped bringing home truths since. And you've never been able to shut me up since. But I never I wasn't brought up political, so I didn't understand the political landscape. I didn't really understand the impact that decisions, I got it at a local level. I didn't understand that some of the issues were at a very national level, at the very top. And I remember one day being invited to a round table discussion in Parliament. It's the first time I'd ever been to Westminster, and again I walked into this meeting room, and it was with government ministers, or I can't even remember who it was, but they just felt like they did not have a clue. And in that room, I just went for it, and I was like, you've abandoned the North. There is not there, and I was going on about the lives and the people that we'd met and what was happening on the ground. And I just remember this woman saying to me across the table, she said, you're coming back here one day. She said, you're going to be the Prime Minister. And to me, as like a young mixed race woman from Stockton-on-Tees, that like, it wasn't even like you'd be an MP. It was like, it just blew I was just like, I do not understand anything about politics. Why on earth? Like, but what it did was it sowed a seed that like, actually those voices and the stories that I encounter, the people who I meet, like really what she was saying is we need those voices in this space. Like that's what isn't happening at the moment in Parliament. That's what isn't happening with our political leaders. There is no one representing the North and the people's concerns. And so the angrier I got and the mouthier I got, eventually I made the decision that I'm going to get involved in party politics. And I felt like, you know, that party politics isn't the be all and end all, that you can make changes in so many areas, but actually if you want to walk into the halls of power and you want to be at the seat, if you want to have a seat at the table, not just shout at those with a seat at the table, then you have to put yourself forward to be a representative. And so that's what I'm doing now in the Tees Valley. It's the first political campaign. Like I'm going for like a regional mayor. Like most regional mayors have become MPs first, but I wanted to go in at a regional political level, because actually I feel like at the moment, because of how things are with Parliament and government, that being a voice at a regional level and having the power and resources is the best way that I can represent the people that I fight for.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Andy in the comments is saying we absolutely do need voices like yours. Lots of love for Jessie. Lynn commented earlier saying it was just really great to see a younger age profile. No offense, Chris. But it is great to see women of all ages being involved in politics, isn't it? I'm not going to give it a big talk like you guys did, but I mean, I'm definitely feeling I agree with sort of what Heidi said and what Jessie said and what Mary's said. I feel there's lots of echoes in that of my experience about feeling really frustrated that people who are making decisions about the resources available for my special educational needs kids had no kids or experienced special educational needs or and were no, not my life experience. So I just think it's really important for people who are actually affected by services to make decisions about services. And unfortunately, it does become one of those situations where, like Jessie said, unless you do it, who else is going to do it? If you're the person with that experience, it's what you've got to do. Step up for the good of everyone, hopefully. Great, thanks very much, everyone. We'll move on to the problem. The problem is that women are 51%, are we 51% of the population? And we are dreadfully underrepresented in politics. It's taken some really clear sort of affirmative action from the Labour Party to get the amount of women in the House of Parliament that we've got. And even now you will have people arguing with you that there shouldn't be such a thing of all women shortlists. So, it should be the best person for the job. However, mysteriously, the best person for the job always ends up being a man. That's such a mystery, isn't it, how that works out? So what can we do to bring more women into politics? How can we switch them on to it? I'll go with the same pattern I did before if I can remember. So we'll start with Chloe. Thanks.
I think there's lots of things we can do. I think, again, it's a bit of a snowball thing. The more of us that are represented, the more people will look at us and go, if they can do it, I can do it as well. That's a big thing. And I think too, there is a culture of misogyny in this country, especially female politicians. Anyone who has social media and has tried to get it all political will tell you that, especially for women, it can be quite difficult. And I think, it's twofold. We have to combat that culture that makes it okay to do that. But equally, we have to have the support and the sisterhood for each other, that when that happens, as Mary says, you are as good as anyone else. And these people are only knocking you because they know you're good and they're frightened of the change that you could bring. And I think if you see it like that, it becomes quite an empowering thing. You are powerful enough that people are spending so much of their time tearing you to shreds, So I think it's about representation and creating a better culture, and just lots of other things. That was someone opening a door in my house.
Oh, I thought it was my stomach there.
There's someone closing the door in my house. We need some WD-40, definitely. But I definitely think it's about getting out there and bringing other women with you. So the women's officer role in CLP is really important. To, I'm going to say that our women's officer in Bishop Auckland encouraged me to stand, because that sounds nicer than strong-armed. But she absolutely did. And I think it's so important that we have these women who are helping younger or less experienced women, not necessarily younger, get in, because I think there's a lot of women who think you need a special qualification to get into politics. I never did my GCSE in becoming an MP, so I can't. And I think there's an issue with socialisation, that men wake up and go, I can do it, I can be an MP. And women go, well, surely I can't do it because I've never done anything like that, or I've never done enough. When actually you watch something like Question Time, and you watch the news and you think, most women could do this, but I'd do it better.
We've had a lot of, during the pandemic, we've had a lot of, when you point out Boris Johnson's failings, there's been a lot of, well, do you think you could do better? And I'm like, well, actually, yeah. Actually, I do. There's nothing special about Boris Johnson. He's just the same as the rest of us. He's not some kind of god. Heidi.
Sorry, I was just going to say on that, Sam, I remember when I was considering standing for mayor, and I don't think Boris Johnson was he the PM at the time? Anyway, I remember my sister saying to me, and I was like, I don't know if I've got all the experience and everything that you need to kind of go in to do a role like that. And my sister said, do you think for one moment that Boris Johnson said to his family, have I got the skills and abilities to be the mayor of London? of course he didn't. He's born into privilege. They're expected to rule. He hasn't got the skills or the experience or the knowledge or anything else that gives him the right to be there, but they think they've got the right. And it's like there's something in our own mindset that like I had to switch to say, no, I've got everything I need and more. And I had to really kind of challenge my own mindset, really, of what my own glass ceiling that I'd put over myself.
Yes, I remember watching you say that on social media and being like, yes, absolutely.
Like, you can be a bumbling idiot and lead the country, you know.
Yes. Heidi, what do we need to do?
Well, it's interesting. I was actually thinking about this earlier. And I think, you know, I was kind of listening to a debate a while ago, and it was about whether more education is needed, or whether it's just that we need a more welcoming environment. And I kind of agreed towards I'm a massive fan of education, just because I think it helps people and it makes them feel a bit more certain if they know exactly what is expected of them and what their role is. But I did kind of think, yes, maybe it isn't at an adult level education, more so a welcoming environment. You're not fixing the woman, you're fixing the environment to make them more likely to come into it. However, I do really agree with education from a school level. I think that we should be encouraging children from a young age to become involved in politics, to particularly girls, to know that they have a voice and that they can stand up and speak about something they disagree with, that they don't have to be a certain age to start a petition, little things like that. And I know at the sensory place I came across education for children, and it was talking to them all about how Parliament's set up and what it is that they need to do to be involved. And there was also an Empower course, and that was around people with learning disabilities. It was more aimed towards people approaching adulthood and adults, but I actually have set them both up, so I'm hoping that we get a few more people sign up so that they can run, just because I think something like that is so beneficial. So I think, yes, education at the right age group and the right level, but then I think in adulthood more the environment than anything else. I know I have been, since I joined the party, I have been massively supported, and you know, everybody that I didn't really know have now become friends and saying to me, you can do it, you know, you'll be fine, you'll be great. And I think if I didn't have those people there, I probably would have shied away a little bit, because like all of us, we all have so much on, and when you get kind of that negative feedback, it makes you think, am I doing the right thing, is that person right? So I think it's more just about ignoring that and continuing to build a community in which people want to be a part of, because they think, you know, my opinion matters, like you know, Chloe and Jessie said.
Yeah, Brenda makes a really good point in the comments. She says, I think it's really important to remember the contributions of women who aren't councillors, mayors, MPs. Simply participating in a political party is a great achievement in these challenging times. One of the things that I've learned through my participation in the Women's Banner Group is just how much of women's what you might call political activity, community activity, is just swept under the carpet and ignored by society and not given anywhere near the type of esteem it deserves. And that goes for unpaid carers like myself, people who organise coffee mornings for people who are maybe, you know, lonely. There's all kinds of things that women do in the community, and it's just expected that it's their job. So I think all of those things are political. So I think there's a lot of women out there who are engaged in politics without really knowing it, and who wouldn't call themselves politicians. But when you make the choice to devote some of your time to looking after people who are less fortunate than yourself, then I think you are a politician. You've made a decision. Chris, what can we do to get more women into politics?
Strangely enough, today I met with the Women's Network from Unison, and this was one of the subjects that we talked about. And Heidi's hit on it a little bit, What we really need to do is support each other. But she's right, we need to get it at school level first, because if you go into a secondary school, I know, I've been there, teenage girls will sometimes crucify each other rather than support each other because of a male or a piece of makeup or a fashion or something. They don't support each other, and that's what we need to start with, getting them to support each other and carry that through. It's a big problem, and if we can start it young, it can carry on, and that would be absolutely wonderful. And you know, if we can sort of take it into the workplace, and like what we were talking about today, you know, if you've got somebody there, I was thinking, really, I think today's hit me hard, like we're doing with the postal vote. See if you can get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to join. If we could get each other to get somebody to support and join somebody else up and get younger people in. I mean, I've been doing get younger people in, and I know people say I'm an ancient so and so. Yes, I know I am, but I hope that I'm there for loads of younger people, and I'll be the one soon who'll say, right, bring on, keep bringing and keep bringing. But I am absolutely certain, because I'm going to tell you something, I wasn't always ancient, and I was a young person, and I was on a district council that became a borough council, and I was the very first woman chairman that they ever had. But thank you. But it was the second day of being that very first woman chairman, that I heard the whisper behind me, well, I wonder who she's sleeping with. That's our lovely support that we have from the women. You know, we're too good at putting ourselves down and not supporting each other. So we really need to do that a little bit more. And that's the instance I'm giving you with the young people. They do it to each other all the time. So if we can get across that young and help each other, frightens, nerves, things like that is another reason it happens. But if we can just help each other, it's not a bad thing. We do some wonderful things in the community. That's the way I think we can. I mean, I do loads of voluntary work, and I work alongside some wonderful people who are getting interested in some of the stuff we do, which I'm hoping will move on to something else.
Yes.
Fortunately, not everybody's as young as we would like them to be, but they are really interested. So I'm hoping that's going to mosey on into something else. Maybe it's not at the level we want at the moment, but it's coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Musa, who is a man, says in the comments, it's always an option for men to decide to step aside and not to stand as candidates against women. I just think that's a really good point. And I've had that because I got selected as in an all-women shortlist, and so I've had this debate to hell and high water all over the place. And it just strikes me when you're having a conversation with some men who disagree with all women shortlists, who say, you know, it's just so unfair to be discriminated against because of your gender when, you know, you had no choice about that. And I'm like, yeah, it is, isn't it? It really is. Now, understand maybe why we have to take these actions, because, you know, this is the world we're living in, where we have doors closed to us because we happen to have been born a woman. Great. Let's go to Mary next. What can we do to get more women involved in politics?
Well, I don't want to repeat what everyone said, because I totally agree with all of that. And I was also elected on an all-women shortlist. I was when I was a councillor as well. And yeah, it might not be ideal, but until we have achieved equality, then it's necessary, isn't it, to do that? And it really has worked. It has boosted the numbers of women entering public life and being elected. And it does, if you see more normal, everyday people who are like you in those positions, then that's when you see, you know, you can do it. And, you know, it's not just about women as well. It's, for me, it's about class. And it's being a woman from the Northeast even is massively important, that we represent the Northeast, because we are absolutely nothing like Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson or the women of that ilk either. We need to fight for our rights and for policies that will help us as women and in the Northeast. And you know, lots of women over the years have led the way and they've done an awful lot to bring about equality, but it's those social constructs that we live with, they're still there, they still exist. There's still a lot of work to do to break down those barriers and that sexism that we see across the board. I mean, even we've seen it in the women might be 51% of the world population, but we're also the poorest as well, represent the poorest in society and across the world. And we've seen it in with COVID, we've seen it with this budget. I mean, the Chancellor came along and put this budget together that completely, well, women are the hardest hit, and those in the lowest income brackets are the hardest hit from this whole budget. And he's saying it's going to be fair. The Chancellor saying it's fair and it'll be fixing public finances. But we know that women from low incomes as well as BAME backgrounds are going to be the hardest hit, and they have been for years. And in fact, and it's one of the things that motivates me and hopefully motivates other women as well to get involved and have a voice, whether it is in the community or whether it is in politics. It's the fact that, you know, I'm very passionate about health inequalities. And, you know, I think health equity and the health of the population really shows what type of society you live in. And, you know, health inequalities and life expectancy got better and better since the 1900s, year on year, got better and better until 2011. Wonder what that was in 2011. And now life expectancy stalled and has even gone backwards for the 10% of the poorest women. It's got worse life expectancy. I mean, come on. If that doesn't inspire you to get involved and do something, then what does? It's just so unfair. But whilst you have men making those decisions, then, you know, what's going to change? So I would say to young people, to young women, and especially your working class women, you have to, we do desperately need your life experience and your voice to, as Jessie said, to be heard and be in there making those decisions and make sure that people listen to you, or nothing will change. And we can do it because women are very resilient and very strong, because we've been sort of subordinates for so long that we know that we will keep on challenging and keep on fighting until we get something changed.
Thanks, Mary. Jessie, what do we need to change to get more women involved in politics?
Well, some of you will know that I'm standing for Tees Valley Mayor, and you may also know that I will be the first female Metro Mayor in the country. Every single Metro Mayor at the moment is a bloke, and where we in Parliament have been proactive in getting women in, we have not done that at a local government level, and we are badly failing, and particularly minority women, really badly failing. There is not one woman minority in the north of Birmingham, in fact north of Watford, who is leading a council, leading in local government. It is a tragedy. And I think I want to say two things though, and I'm really passionate about getting people into politics and seeing people become political. And I think that we sometimes need to start at a very local level. And some of the most exciting things that I've seen over the years in terms of like political organising has been the teaching assistants strike in Durham, which was phenomenal, that engaged hundreds and thousands, there were probably like thousands of women in terms of support, fighting for their rights. I think at a really local level, I worked with a group of young lads when I was running the charity, and we gave them funding to put on a community festival. These are lads who people had written off. They were like the ones who tore up the community usually. We gave them power and money to be able to put on to do something they wanted to do, and they put on a festival. And they kept coming back each week. But after the festival had happened, it was a huge success, and it broke down so many barriers in that community. These group of young lads wanted to keep coming back. and they wanted to do more, and really practical things, like they wanted to see their windows improve, and I know, and they wanted to see like their community looked after and more community wardens, like proper political stuff. And this was a group of lads who no one would have expected to have political viewpoints. And I've realised that by giving small amounts of power and small wins, people then start to aim higher. And I think we need to do that with women. And I think we need to be in those communities, and those very small, which might seem like a small issue, like for instance school uniforms, and having to have school uniforms that have logos on, which is so crippling financially to some families, and yet they feel the stigma if they don't have the new uniforms. Being able to organise with a group of women, and I think something happened in Northumberland around this, where they organised with a group of women, and they were able to basically do a campaign around school uniform logos and not having to have the branded wear. And then that was the first encounter of these women taking power and achieving something. But it has to go on, it has to keep going. And there's a point when they may explore politics. And we have to be the most open and inclusive party to people. And they will come in with all sorts of political views. And these lads, I couldn't tell you what their political views were, and some of it would shock you. But it's like, I feel like we get to a certain level and we talk about inclusivity, but then if you don't reach this sort of line of political purity of whatever faction you might be in, or whatever your belief is within the Labour Party, if you're not that brand, then you're excluded. That has to stop. It has to stop. It's destroying our party. It's destroying our movement about having to people. We need to represent people of our class and our communities and of the North, and we need them to be part of our party because they are our future. Every time I hear the word entryism, I just think, what a ridiculous word. Do we not want people to enter our party? Because if we don't, then where are we going? I do not want to be part of something that is full of people who are in it just for what they can get out of it. I want people who are in it to make a difference in their communities, and that means us being open and inclusive to people. So I think start small, start with small wins, and bring people on a political journey, and that's how we'll see this party and the country transformed.
You're on mute, Samantha.
I'm muted. Oh gosh.
Yes.
Me. Yeah, I think we really need to look. I am lucky enough to be chair of a constituency Labour Party, and it has took quite a lot of time for me to get there. And I think it was not a welcoming place when I started. But I was actually told to be quiet. I was actually told I'd get more respect if I talked less. I just found so many obstacles to participate in. Laura says I'm not lucky. I did work for it actually. Yeah. I think we really do need to break down those barriers, especially if we want working class people involved in the Labour Party. If you're working shifts, maybe you've got to look at how we include those people in meetings, or enable them to perhaps vote without being at a meeting, or participate virtually. I really would love to see some kind of hybrid meetings going forward where people can participate in person and virtually. That would be brilliant. But I desperately need mechanisms for proxy voting or remote voting, so that people, if you've got a shift at work, you can still be active in your local party, because that's a huge barrier. And also for women, it's bedtime. It's wrong that the majority of caring falls on the shoulders of women, but it's also a fact that the majority of caring for children falls on the shoulders of women, and all of our meetings are at tea time and bedtime. And I know that there are women who are excluded from politics because of that, because whatever the rights or wrongs, they are the only person in the house who can perform that role. So it's difficult. It is difficult. There's societal things we can't change. we are trying to change society, but we can change our own environment. Thank you, Emma. Emma says definitely need this women to participate. Yes, absolutely. Right, we've only got a few minutes left. Time has indeed flown. So yeah, just to round us off then, anybody got any advice to either to women starting off, or perhaps advice or what you would like to see from women like Jessie and Mary, who are not really, I mean, I know Jessie said it's the first time she's had a campaign, but it's quite a big one. Those visible female politicians, is there anything you'd like to see from them? Would anybody like to sort of jump in?
I mean, I would just to say, you know, I've talked about being a member of parliament now, and it was, as I said at the beginning, organic, but it's not the be all and end all. And I still sit in meetings wishing I'd said something when, you know, men are speaking. I wished I'd said it, and I still get that sort of slight nervousness about saying something and then kick myself afterwards for not saying it. I'll still get that, and you know, that's just up to me and my own confidence, I guess. But you've also mentioned as well that it isn't all about being an MP or a mayor. It's whatever your life experience and what you do in your community is so important. I was a community development worker for years as well, and I remember starting the credit union with 20 of us. Started a credit union because we know there were so many people in poverty in my area. What can we do about it? Started something which was quite small, and now it is massive, and that's a practical measure that helps women mainly work together and develop together and actually have access to cheap finance, if you like. So things like getting involved with your credit union, I think, you know, a decent, well-paid job is, if you're in a trade union, make sure your voice is heard in your trade union, and fight for equal pay and better working conditions for women. So yeah, it's in all walks of life that women's voices need to be heard. And just by accident that I fell into being an MP, and I guess the same with Jessie as well. It's you're not born thinking that's what you want to do. It's something that is just a natural progression in your life. So, you know, women are brilliant, as I said, and strong and resilient, and you can do whatever you want. We can knock them walls down and achieve whatever we want with the help of other women.
Thanks. Chris, is that you indicating?
Yes, please. Just following on very quickly from what Mary says, if you've got children, you want a better life for them, fight for it. There's loads of ways to do it. Just go ahead, do it. Think about them, and you'll be surprised what's out there.
Oh, we've got a new panelist. Who's that, Jessie? Do you want to introduce them?
This is my little niece. She's just been left in the lounge room. She was crying, so I'm going to give her a little hug.
The girl, so she's allowed on.
She is, and actually, I was thinking what I was going to say. Oh, my dog's here as well. You know, like I'm fighting for her future. Like, I cannot go in my lifetime. I do not want to be in a position where her future is dictated by her skin color or by her gender. I want her to achieve everything that she wants to achieve in life. I don't want to have these arguments. I don't want to have these fights. And you know, it's like, if not me, then when? And I just think for every woman listening, like, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Come into politics and change the face of it. We only have one lifetime. We only have one moment to make a difference. Do it now, because the world is getting really, really messed up. And if we don't do something, this future for this little girl is not going to be the one that she deserves.
Thank you, Jessie. I totally agree. And that's why I'm in politics now. You know, started off, it was because my kids weren't getting the support they needed. So I wanted to change the system. And now I know they're never going to get the support they're going to need. But I'm thinking about their kids now, you know, and that's really, really powerful, actually. Do you have any advice to anybody in politics, Heidi, or anything you'd like to see your female political leaders do?
I think I would just say that there are no minor issues. I think people always think in the grand scheme of things that the things they care about are less important than whatever else is going on. And I think that isn't the case. If you're passionate about it, then you need to stand up and speak about it, because I guarantee just one person standing up and saying, I really care about this, I've experienced this, you will get multiple people who then have the kind of courage to come forward and say, well, actually, I've experienced that as well. And I would say, just like everybody else has said, if you're not gonna do it for you, do it for your kids, do it for your nieces and your nephews, so that when they grow up, they don't go through the same struggles that you did. I know I had some awfully misogynistic experiences that were kind of border on kind of sexual harassment when I was at school, and I kept quiet about it because I just kind of thought, well, this is what happens to girls. And it was only after I had my daughter, I thought, well, I don't want that to happen to my daughter. I'd be mortified if it did. And I mean, I kept quiet, and, you know, I just didn't say anything. But I would lie. And I mean, people go through much worse experiences than myself. But I wouldn't want my daughter to even go through what I did. I want her to grow up in a world where she knows that being a girl or a woman is not less important than being a man, and that she's got every right to challenge a man without them saying to her, is it your time of the month? You know, there's no need to get emotional or hormonal. It just needs to stop. And, you know, there needs to be more voices and more people standing up and saying, I experienced this and it's wrong. And I think if you care about it, then you definitely can do it. Every single person could. So
Thank you. Chloe, do you have anything to say on this?
I totally agree with everything everyone else has said. I'd just like to stress, you know, the value of solidarity too. Women are a marginalised community, whether, you know, not necessarily a minority, but we are an oppressed community. And I think there's a lot of value in solidarity with other people, depending on race or sexuality or class, which has been mentioned tonight. And, you know, together we are such a powerful force. And I think we do have to reach out to those, you know, those other people and bring them on board.
Fab, thanks very much. Well, that brings us to the end then. Well, thanks so much for talking so openly and really from the heart. I think there's a really strong story here among all of us about women who taken a really sort of generational approach into, you know, this world hasn't been what I needed it to be for myself, but we can make it better for the next generation. A strong theme of family issues inspiring us to take charge of our own destiny and push ourselves forward, and a strong message that our voices is worth speaking and definitely worth other people listening to. I think there's a cultural thing about women not speaking that we need to get past. I think there's a cultural thing about women being told that they're less than others that we need to get past, and we need to, as we have all said during this, work through that together and push other people to stand and push other people to take active roles in their communities, and support each other. All right then. So thanks very much for joining us tonight, everybody. If everybody wants to wave. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Bye. Bye, lovely women.